Okay, so imagine this scenario for a second. It's a Tuesday, nothing, particularly special. You're driving in your car, maybe you're just staring out the window on a bus or, I don't know, standing in line at the grocery store. Your mind is totally blank, just running on autopilot. And then a specific song comes on. And instantly, I mean, faster than you can blink, you're not in that car anymore. You're not in the grocery store.
You've been transported.
Yeah, completely. You're 16 years old. It's the middle of July. You can smell the specific coconut sunscreen you used to wear.
Mm-hmm.
You can see the way the sunlight hit the pavement outside your high school.
Mm-hmm.
And you feel this just overwhelming wash of emotion. It's visceral. It happens to all of us, right? It's basically time travel.
It absolutely is time travel, or at least it's the closest thing we have to it biologically. And it's this universal human experience, but we rarely stop and ask why it happens. Why does a collection of, abstract sounds have the physical power to yank us out of the present and drop us into the past with such precision?
Exactly. And that is what we are unpacking today. We're doing a deep dive into a really fascinating column called Music and Memory, When Melody Transcends Time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The mission here is to figure out why music acts as this master key to what the author calls the drawers of memory.
It's a beautiful metaphor, isn't it? The idea that we have these locked drawers inside us, and melody is the only thing that fits the lock. But just to set the stage with a little hard science, this isn't magic, it's neuroscience. The source highlights that music triggers this kind of double whammy in the brain that almost nothing else does.
A double whammy, I like that.
Yeah.
So what's actually firing in there when, I don't know, Mr. Brightside comes on?
So when you listen to music, it stimulates the hippocampus. That's the part of the brain responsible for memory, the context, the where and when. Mm-hmm. But simultaneously, and this is the key part, it hits the amygdala, which handles emotion.
So it's literally wiring your memory and your feelings together at the exact same moment.
Precisely. That's the aha moment. I mean, usually memories degrade because the emotional connection just sort of fades. But music binds them together. The whole thesis of this deep dive is that music is a temporal art. When we listen, we are engaged in a physical act of replaying previous time. It's a reenactment of the past.
I love that concept, reenactment. Mm-hmm. It makes listening feel so much more active. It's not just looking at a dusty photo album. It's like stepping back into the movie of your life. But let's rewind a bit, because today we have Spotify and instant access to everything. But humans have been using music to remember things long before we had iPhones or even record players.
Long, long before. And this is where it gets really interesting. If we look at, say, segment 1 of our discussion, rhythm as the architecture of time, we have to go back to the era before any recording technology existed.
Right. So let's put ourselves in the shoes of someone living, 2,000 years ago. You couldn't just hit record. You didn't have Wikipedia. So how did people remember their history? How did they remember who they were?
They used rhythm. The source argues that rhythm is the most fundamental structure of music because it literally represents the order of time. In ancient oral cultures, you couldn't just hand someone a book of myths or a list of laws. You had to memorize it. And let me ask you, how do you memorize a 3-hour epic poem or a genealogy of 50 kings?
You put it to a beat. It's the same reason I can still recite the alphabet, because I sing it.
Exactly. The body resonates with rhythm. It makes information sticky. The source describes ancient festivals, prayers, dances as experiencing a circular ring of time. You repeat the rhythm to bring the past into the present.
Circular ring of time. That sounds very mystical, but it makes so much practical sense.
It's practical magic. By engaging in that rhythm, the community wasn't just recalling history, they were reliving it. The body remembers the beat, even if the mind forgets the words.
So, in a way, those ancient drum circles or, chanting prayers, they were the original hard drives, storage devices for culture.
That's a great analogy. And if we connect this to the big picture, the source suggests that our modern habits haven't actually changed all that much. We think we're so advanced, but a Spotify playlist is just a new format for that ancient primal desire to organize memory through rhythm. We're still trying to create that circular ring of time every time we put a song on repeat.
It kind of blows my mind a little bit.
Yeah.
Just digital cavemen tapping our feet. But okay, let's move to when things did change, structurally. Segment 2, the invention of save time.
The 20th century. This is the massive pivot point in human history when it comes to sound.
Enter Thomas Edison.
Yes. When Edison's phonograph arrived in the early 1900s, it wasn't just a cool gadget, it was a philosophical revolution. We have to understand that for the entire history of the human race up to that point, sound was ephemeral.
Meaning, once you said it or played it, it was just
Gone forever, vanished into the air. The phonograph allowed us to preserve time. For the very first time, a voice from the past could speak in the present.
Preserving time. That sounds like sci-fi, but it's literally what a record is. It's frozen time.
It is. And the source walks us through this evolution of the sound archive. We went from records to tapes, CDs, MP3s, and now streaming. But what's fascinating here is how these recordings capture what the author calls the temperature of the era.
Oh, I like that phrasing. The temperature of the era. Unpack that a little.
Well, think about it. If you read a history book about post-war Japan, you get facts. Dates, treaties, economic figures. But if you listen to a popular song recorded in post-war Japan, you feel the atmosphere. You hear the specific quality of the air, the mood, the collective hope, or the underlying sadness. It records the social memory more directly than text ever could.
It's the difference between reading a description of a room and actually standing inside it. You can sense the vibe.
Exactly. The sound carries the emotional weight of the specific day it was recorded. And looking at the timeline in the source, there are some huge milestones. 1950, the golden age of radio. That's when memory became domestic.
Right, music entering the living room. The family gathering around the glowing box.
But the one that really changed the individual relationship with music, and I know you'll appreciate this, was 1979.
The Sony Walkman.
The Walkman. This is a crucial shift. Before 1979, music was stationary. You went to the music. With the Walkman, the music came with you. Suddenly, you could soundtrack your walk to school, your bus ride, your time alone. It changed how we narrate our own lives.
It turned life into a movie where you're the protagonist.
And that just deepened the memory connection, because now the music was being overlaid onto your personal daily experiences, not just special events.
And then, obviously, we speed up the timeline. 1999 brings Napster. 2010 brings Spotify, shifting memory to the cloud. But I want to go back to that emotional punch we talked about. Segment 3 covers the science of nostalgia. Why does it make us cry? Why does it hurt so good?
The source offers a really poignant insight here. It says it's not just the sound you're reacting to, it's a reunion with a past self.
A reunion with a past self. That is heavy. It implies that versions of us are sort of left behind, and the music is the bridge.
That's exactly it. Psychology suggests that melody and harmony act as tags for memory. So when you hear a song, your brain isn't just processing the notes. It is unconsciously replaying the sensory details attached to that tag. The smell, the light, the temperature, it's all encoded in the file, so to speak.
It's like a zip file for your emotions. You double-click the song, and all of this sensory data just unzips at once.
That is a perfect way to put it. And there's a biological reason why the music you listen to in middle school and high school hits the hardest. It's called the reminiscence bump.
The reminiscence bump. Let me guess. Because we were overly dramatic teenagers, and everything felt like the end of the world.
Well, the drama certainly helps encode the memory. But biologically, it's because the brain's plasticity is at its absolute highest during childhood and adolescence. The neural pathways are being paved. The cement is wet. The music you hear then forms your emotional core.
That explains so much. It explains why I can't get into some new genres, but I can recite every single lyric from a 2005 pop punk song.
Because that song is part of your architecture. And the source points out that the popularity of revival hits on YouTube and Spotify is proof of this. We are using these platforms as memory playback devices. We're actively seeking that reunion with our younger selves.
So we use the tech to hack our own nostalgia. But this brings us to a really interesting and maybe slightly complicated part of the discussion, segment 4, the algorithm versus the individual.
This is the modern dilemma. We have moved from a physical choice, walking over to a shelf, picking a record, dropping the needle to AI prediction.
Right. I open my app and it says Discover Weekly, or here's a mix for you, and I just click play. It's convenient. I don't have to think.
And that convenience is wonderful, but the source argues it represents memory editing by algorithm.
Oh, memory editing. That sounds like the title of a dystopian novel. What does the author mean by that?
Think about it. If an algorithm is deciding what nostalgic songs to feed you based on data points, are you listening to your own organic memories? Or are you listening to memories as data?
That is a really subtle, but yeah, a very important distinction.
It is. The algorithm might throw in a song that was generally popular in 2010, assuming you have a connection to it. Maybe you didn't.
Yeah.
But if you listen to it enough times now, it becomes part of your nostalgia. It's retroactive memory creation.
It's like, am I remembering this because I loved it, or am I remembering it because the computer knows people like me loved it?
Exactly. The source raises this question. Are we listening to our own memories, or are we consuming a standardized collective nostalgia?
That's fascinating. So nostalgia is being externalized.
Yeah.
Music is transforming from this internal personal thing into a networked experience.
And the timeline in the source notes that by 2020, AI playlist recommendation had become general. That marks the algorithmization of memory.
Algorithmization of memory. It really makes you question your own agency. If I'm just consuming what the algorithm feeds me, is my nostalgia even mine anymore?
It's a valid question. We are essentially outsourcing our emotional archiving to machines.
Let's pivot to something more human then. Something the algorithm can't quite replicate yet because it doesn't have a body. Segment 5. Body memory and the collective. Because music isn't just in the cloud, it's in our muscles.
Yes. This is crucial. The source talks about procedural memory. If you play an instrument, you know this. Your hands remember phrases that your conscious mind might have forgotten.
Oh, absolutely. I've sat down at a piano and played songs I haven't thought about in 10 years. My fingers just knew where to go. It's spooky.
That's the body-preserving time. But it applies to listeners, too. The source argues that dancing and singing are acts of memory reproduction through sound and body resonance.
Body resonance.
When you dance to a song you loved 10 years ago, you aren't just thinking about the past. You are physically moving your body in the same way you did then. You are physically becoming your past self.
You're inhabiting that old version of your body. That's wild.
And this extends to groups. The source references Benedict Anderson's concept of imagined communities. Historically, nations were held together by anthems. You sing the same song as a stranger, and you feel connected.
But we aren't really singing national anthems together much these days. That feels very 19th or 20th century.
Yeah, we aren't. But the source argues that the collective memory has shifted. Today, it happens in festivals and on club floors.
The bass drop is the new national anthem.
In a way, yes. The sonic community is the new ritual of the 21st century. Being in a crowd of 50,000 people, all vibrating to the same rhythm, that is the modern version of the village circle we talked about at the beginning. It's a shared memory event.
I love that. It takes it away from the lonely experience of headphones and puts it back into the community. It's about synchronization.
It is. We are social animals, and music is the glue that synchronizes our memories.
There is a flip side to all this memory, isn't there? Where there's sound, there's silence. Segment 6, the philosophy of silence.
This is a beautiful counterpoint. The source reminds us that where there is memory, there is also forgetting. You can't remember everything. If you did, your life would be chaos.
And the source brings up a very specific, very famous example here, John Cage.
John Cage's 433. For those who don't know, it's a piece from 1952 where the performer sits at the piano and plays nothing for 4 minutes and 33 seconds.
Total silence, or, well, not silence, the ambient noise.
Exactly. It redefined hearing by focusing on what's already there. But the source uses this to make a philosophical point. Music isn't just about what we listen to. It's about what we are able not to forget.
What we are able not to forget. Can you unpack that a little?
Imagine time as this vast ocean of silence. Most of our lives just disappear into that ocean. We forget our breakfasts, our commutes, our mundane conversations. Music acts as a vessel. It carries the things that matter.
The lifeboat.
The lifeboat. The melody preserves the essential emotions. Silence represents the forgetting, the vast ocean of time we lose. The music is the link between melody and philosophy because it's our attempt to save something from that silence.
So in the silence, we realize what matters, and the music preserves it. That is surprisingly deep for a discussion that started with a pop song on the radio.
It really connects everything. The biology of the brain, the technology of the Walkman, the community of the festival, and the philosophy of time.
So let's bring this all home. The outro. We've covered a lot of ground, from ancient rhythms to AI algorithms. What's the big picture here?
We have. And the summary really is that we are constantly traveling back and forth in time when we listen. Music is past reenactment and present reconstruction. We use it to anchor ourselves.
I think the biggest takeaway for me is that music isn't just a product we consume. It is memory given form. Even after the music stops, the melody continues in your mind.
It does. It lives in those drawers of memory, ready to be opened again whenever you need to visit who you used to be.
But we have to leave you, the listener, with a provocative thought, something to chew on. You brought up the algorithm earlier, and the source leaves us with a question about the future.
Right. And here's the question the source poses. If algorithms are now curating our nostalgia and predicting what will make us feel emotional, Will future generations even have original memories?
That is the big question.
Will their emotional past be entirely constructed by prediction models? Are we remembering our lives, or will our children be remembering a playlist that was built for them by a code?
That is both terrifying and fascinating. It makes you want to go listen to something really obscure just to rebel against the machine.
It certainly does.
Well, it gives you something to consider the next time you press play. Thank you so much for listening to this deep dive into music and memory. We'll see you in the next one.